If you have a lot going on your life, whether you're in survival mode and just trying to make it through every day and all of the things that are coming at you to keep people alive, including yourself, or if you are in a season where you've got so much going on, you've got great activities for your kids, you're working, you have your own projects and goals, either way and anywhere in between, you can find that there's too much coming at us, right? And so what do we do about it? Well, today I'm going to share with you the parable of the peach tree from our own experience in our backyard. And also what to do with it. What is the actionable steps that we can do to help prevent ourselves from going too far, from getting, from increasing capacity where things are healthy and we're learning and we're growing to hitting that burnout, that meltdown, the shutting down where we start acting not like how we want to because we've taken on too much.
Hi, I'm Jessica Jackson, and this is the new way to thrive in motherhood by leaning into who you are, what you love, your unique family situation and personal mission to create a life that you actually want to live. I want to invite you to join me in saying no to the life of the exhausted supermom, burnout, victim thinking, being pulled in so many directions, suffering through survival mode, or being lost in motherhood, and say yes to building strong families and moving forward on our greatest goals in order to create a fulfilling life that we are excited to wake up to each day and become a soaring mother. This is the Thriving in Motherhood podcast.
Today, I want to invite you to get my free gift, the 5-step path from surviving to thriving checklist. This is meant to meet you exactly where you're at in your motherhood journey, whether you're in total survival mode, whether you're trying to just dig yourself out of the piles of laundry and dishes, whether you're trying to simplify your home and create systems, whether you're trying to figure out I'm feeling lost in motherhood, what do I even love, what do I enjoy, or whether you're how do I make the projects and the goals and the work and all the things fit with all the other responsibilities I have. Wherever you are in that spectrum, this checklist will help you figure out, first of all, where you're at very clearly and what you focus on in each stage so that you're solving the right problems at the right time. You can get that at thrivinginmotherhoodpodcast.com/checklist. Okay, this morning when we woke up, my son was looking out our back window. We use every day. We have our garden back there. We look into the beautiful woods, and he was noticing that he couldn't see the zipper on the trampoline, which is towards the back of our yard. And so he was like, "What is going on?" And as he looked closer, he realized that a branch of our peach tree, which is pretty, substantial, had fallen down, and so it had smashed and landed on top of the olive tree, and so now it's mostly cracked off the tree and is bracing itself on the ground and on another tree. And as I was out there with them, they were looking what happened? Because we hadn't had any big storms or any big winds. We have lost trees and branches during hurricane season and things like that, but that's not what was happening right now. And as I looked, I was realizing, there is a ton of peaches on that tree, so much fruit. We didn't prune it this year. And so I was telling the kids, I think that the weight of the peaches caused the branch to fall down and crack. Now, this would have been absolutely devastating if we expected to eat those peaches, but that tree actually has been needing to come down for a while. It is diseased. It was planted in a shady spot, and so it just has these fungal infections that come. So the peaches look amazing, and then they rot right before they ripen, and we can't get any of them. So we're already planning on cutting down the trees. So this is just the tree helping us move through that process, and us all go through the grieving process with a little more help from nature. However, as I was looking at that tree, I realized, oh my goodness, right now in my life, we are growing so much fruit. We have so many things that we are trying to do for our home, for our yard, for our garden, for the business, for podcasting, for homeschooling, within our relationships, and trying to have more fun as a family. There's just so many things that we are growing right now, all of this fruit. And I was realizing that as we continue to pour into those things, there is this critical point where the weight becomes too much. Now, the antidote to that is pruning, right? If we had pruned that peach tree and given it some more attention in that pruning phase, we would have still had a tree. And we would have still had that branch. And if the fruit hadn't been bad, instead of just losing, a few peaches to pruning, because we didn't, if we had chosen to just prune a few peaches, we would have had a full so many more. But because that branch broke, we lost not just the few we would have if we had pruned, but we lost that whole branch. We lost all the fruit. And the same thing can happen to us. If we are trying to do too many things at one time, and we're trying to pour ourselves into too many different projects and goals and habits and activities and, managing so many things, instead of choosing a few things, we can push ourselves into burnout, into bad health, and into so many problems. And then instead of just losing one or two fruit, we lose the whole thing. Everything we were doing has to stop, shut down while we ourselves heal and recover. And just like our olive tree became collateral damage because it got landed on by this big branch, when we shut down, right, it has an impact on our family, it has an impact on our marriage, has an impact on the other people around us. And so as I was looking at this tree, it was a good moment, a good pause, a good warning to say, are there things that I need to prune right now? And simplify. Not that this is a pulling back, because there is this element of we do need to grow. We do need to be stretching ourselves. We should be uncomfortable. We should be able to do more today than we could 5 years ago because we have learned things, right? And other things that were hard are now easy, so we can be learning new problems. So, and just by the nature of having children grow up, my life, like the things that I could handle when I had toddlers is very different from what I can handle now that I have bigger kids, and I need to be able to handle more now that I have bigger kids, but I had time to grow into that. And so that's not what I'm talking about. However, what are all of these things? Like, we can just keep adding and adding. I mean, I often think of it like the snowball, which we don't have anymore in Georgia. But this is what I used to think about when I lived in a climate with snow, which is when you're rolling that ball, it starts small. And as you continue to roll it, it picks up snow and picks up snow and picks up snow. And it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, which is so fun. And then you hit that point where you can't push it anymore, especially like when I was a kid, right? You've made it so big. Now you can't push it. It weighs too much. And we can often do that in our lives, or again, the peach tree. So many peaches, eventually it breaks if we don't prune. So what do? This is where I want to invite you to do a quarterly review. If you've never done this before, this is a great time to start. And if you've been in the community for a while, if you have the Thriving in Motherhood Planner, it is baked into the planner right there. So you don't have to think about it. It's just when you get to the page, you can open it. But here's the purpose of this quarterly review. I first heard about it from Greg Cohen. I never remember how to say his name, in Essentialism. Now, this is a book I read when I had a baby and a toddler, and he talks about doing a quarterly offsite review where you actually leave your home, you go away from your work, and you spend some time reflecting and reviewing your life and figuring out what is truly essential to keep focusing on and what else do you let go of, and just get some more clarity and direction for your life. Now, as a young mom with a baby and toddler, that offsite review seemed like some fantastical fairyland. But I chose to do an onsite review in my home and work on those, go through those same processes and experiences early in the morning when my kids are sleeping, because that's when I woke up. Maybe you're someone that stays up late at night, or maybe you get luxurious long nap times. I never did. So whatever your moment is, grab it and do this quarterly review. Now, I walk through this entire review process, deep dive, like question by question. I think episode 102, and I'll link it through it on the podcast, that helps you go through, every question in detail. It's also in the Thriving in Motherhood Planner, and you can learn more about that entire system at thrivinginmotherhoodpodcast.com/more-time, which teaches you not only how the quarterly review fits together, but all the other things that fit in the Thriving in Motherhood Planner system, if that's something you're interested in learning about. But the point here is that when we started 3 months ago, 6 months ago, whenever you sat down and planned out your year, or even just started adding things to it, maybe for you it's been years of adding things to it, we start to get these ideas of all the things that we want to do, and we start trying to do many of those things. Or you have a backlog of things you want to do, but you are not doing. It's just a really long list that makes you feel guilty and bad all the time, because you should be doing these things that you're not doing. And so what we can do is we can pause and we can say, what's going well right now and what's not going well right now? And just take stock, like very just matter of fact, look at what's going well and what's not going well. And then we can start to figure out, what do we need to address? And also, what progress have you made on your projects? What progress have you made on goals? What projects have you made in, things with your home and your family and your kids, all these different life areas? And what are things that you've been wanting to do but you're realizing isn't relevant anymore? Or what are things that maybe seemed really important at a time, but at this point in your life you can say, I'm going to let go of this. Like, what are things that we can just let go of, that we don't have to keep on our lists? Or we can set them aside for a different time. Like, this isn't the right moment for this thing, and start to do that pruning. I also like to do a full life assessment. Again, this is in the planner, looking at how are things going with my marriage and my parenting and my, with hobbies, with my job, with relationships, with, like friendships. There's 10 of them, but I go through all of these different categories and see how I'm doing, not because I have to get better in all those areas right now, but because I want to know. Because oftentimes we're feeling something, right? Typically you're feeling bad and you don't know why. And usually we just zone on our phones, right? Or scroll, or we do these things to help us. And it's easier than ever to do these things to numb us or get away from whatever's feeling bad. And so we don't ever solve this problem because we're just numbing ourselves to whatever's wrong. But when we can take a moment and reflect and be like, why is this wrong? Why do I feel stressed? Why do I feel anxious? And take a look at our life, we might get some clues there. And so after you've kind of done this review, you've done some analysis, you've done some celebrating about what's going well and evaluating what progress you've made and figuring out what things are relevant and which ones aren't anymore, what things have changed, what you can totally just cross off your list, do that pruning, and also got some clues about how you're doing and why. Then you get to move this part of asking some really powerful questions, which is, what is the most important thing that I should be doing, that I should do right now? Like, what's the number one thing that will make the biggest difference? Sometimes it's sleep. If I just slept more, everything would go better. If I just decluttered the homeschool room, then my big pain point of being consistent in homeschooling would be solved because it would be easy to get to the things. Or if I just spent 15 minutes each night talking with my husband, my marriage would get better. And that would solve so many problems. What is your one thing? Those are 3 examples, one of millions of options out there. And then asking, what are we going to stop doing and what are we going to start doing in support of these things that matter so much to us? Now, this is just one. Again, these are flexible questions. These are frameworks that you can use to customize to your specific circumstances, to your specific season, to your specific life. But as we end June and go into July, or whenever you're watching this, if you haven't done a quarterly review in a long time, then it's just time to do one right now, wherever you're at. But you need to pause and ask these things so that you have a chance to cut off some of the fruit, on that tree before the branch breaks. And also, when I come out of this, typically when it's time to do a quarterly review, by this point, I'm feeling fuzzy because I did one quarter, I did one previously. I get into the rhythm of this, right? So every quarter I'm doing this and I've done my projects and I've done my goals. And so I'm getting to the end of it. Now I'm like, well, now what? And I'm either finding myself like bored and kind of spinning in circles or wasting time, or like trying to take it all on, like trying to just be like, oh, there's so many things I can be doing now. I got to the end of those things and just ramp up and try and start doing all the things all the time. And so this review process is really important when you're in either of those states, if it's been a while since you've done planning, because it allows you to slow down and get clarity. Because the goal isn't to be productive all the time. The goal is to have clarity about what matters most so that we can spend our time and energy on the things that matter most. And as I talked with Moms in Soaring Mother Society, as we just did our monthly reviews together and planning out June, one of the things that we had to talk about is in the summer, it can often feel very stressful because the things that we're used to doing in the school year with the same structure, especially if you have kids at school or daycare, all of a sudden you see, oh my goodness, my time is going away. It's shrinking. I don't have as much time to do the things I wanted to do. My kids are home all summer. Things are different. Instead of starting with, what do I want the summer to be like? What kind of mom do I want to be? What kind of priorities would I have? How do I want to experience this with my children? And then we can work backwards from there and say, okay, if this is the life I want to live, if this is how I want to show up with my kids, if these are the things we want to do as a family, how does the other stuff fit in? And again, a natural pruning process is going to have to occur. And maybe this year you can't have the summer exactly as you want it because you're realizing, I've already committed to things. But it will help as you start thinking it through. What do you want the rhythm of your year to be like? If you're in survival mode, what I just said is probably the most stressful thing on the face of the planet. I'm sorry, just ignore it. If you are out of survival mode right now and you're in that normalizing phase or even in that, exploring phase, thriving phase that we talk about in the 5-step path, this question of what do I want the rhythm of my year to be like and what ebbs and flows, you can start to take stock and know of like, okay, what's going well this summer? What do I like about this summer? And what do I want it to be like next year? What could I do differently to prepare and set myself up for success for the next summer? Again, we can't control everything, but there are some natural ebbs and flows to the seasons that we can start being aware of and think on a slightly bigger level. So all that to say is, I hope that as you maybe just think about this principle in nature of we have to prune for the fruit. To get any of the fruit, there has to be a pruning process. Otherwise, the tree gets too heavy, it weighs down and breaks. That's just reality. It happened in our yard this morning. And so as you think about that principle in your own life, what are the things that you can prune and let go of so that you can enjoy the fruit of the effort that you're putting into things right now? What are the things that you really want to enjoy the fruit of? And what are things that just need to wait till the next season? So thank you so much for joining me this week. Again, check out the Plan a Week You Can Win training at thrivinginmotherhoodpodcast.com/more time. And Please share this episode with people. If it resonated with you, you can leave a review on iTunes. Thank you so much for doing that. For all of you that have, if you're on YouTube, you can subscribe. Thank you so much. And I hope you have a wonderful week, and I will talk to you again next week.
Where you are planted, watch the blossoms grow.